Welcome to the program, Esther.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your recent achievements. You were also recognized by Wolf Magazine as one of the 100 inspiring women in the country at a very tender age. And you're doing so much, and that's why we thought we should have a chat with you so you can inspire us. Welcome to the program, and people would like to know who you are. I have introduced you, but tell us who you are.
My name is Esther Gomani. I'm a student activist or student leader, whichever people may prefer. I'm based here in Lilongwe. I am a recent graduate from the Malawi Assemblies of God University. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in banking and finance. And I'm also a Kid Kindness grant winner in 2023, the only Malawian. And recently I have been appointed as I've been elected as Africa Student Representative serving on the Executive Committee of
You're fairly young.
I started, it dates back in 2021. I vied for candidacy running as the female general secretary for the Magu Student Council. And that's when the student leadership itself's journey started. I was competing against another female and I won with a landslide. It was great. I won, and I think it's been from Magu Student Council to the National Student Body, which was then what we call the Malawi National Students Union Task Force. It's not popularly known, maybe because we haven't fully registered it. It's registered as the National Students Union as a trustee, but it hasn't been fully recognized at a national level. But other than that, I graduated from that level at a national and was exposed to the regional student organization, which is called the Southern Africa Students Union, SASU in short. Then from there, the umbrella student organization in Africa, it's called the All Africa Students Union. They identified me as a leader from Malawi who is serving at the national level. So they started engaging me in various projects that they were running, including what we called the Digital Inclusion Campaign in 2022. We're advocating for affordable internet, digital infrastructure, and accessibility for learners to facilitate online learning. So I think it's been that kind of a journey. You can see from a national, then regional, to now globally.
Wow,
yes.
I'm super proud of you as a nation.
Thank you.
What inspired you really?
I've always had a heart to serve. I think that's one key thing that drives me. And my university journey hasn't been all that smooth. And particularly for me, that inspired me to speak up about the issues that as young people we face in the various schools that we attend, from the inequalities itself to the affordability maybe of tuition fees, etc., etc. So I've studied in a private institution, I think, all my life. And it hit me the most whilst I was in university, because when you're faced with any challenge, people are not just looking at you as an individual who is studying in a private university, but they say that when you're enrolling, it means you had the capacity, to be able to pay your tuition fees yourself. And when you're faced with any crisis, people are like, no, why didn't you go to a public school? We forget the fact that for you to attend a public school, you have to be selected by the government, right? And they cannot select everyone, despite of your grades. They will have to have a limit. This year, we are going to select so much students. So that was a challenge for me, and I wanted to speak about such issues, as well as issues to do with student loans and all those things. So I think that fueled my drive to advocacy and vying for student candidacy. I wanted to represent my fellow students. I wanted to represent those that cannot speak up. Yeah.
And tell us about your involvement with UNESCO SDG 4.
So the UNESCO SDG 4 Youth and Student Network is more like a global platform of students and young people represented from different organizations, different youth groups in various countries globally, like I said. And what we aim is to ensure the meaningful participation of young people, student groups in decision-making platforms. So we engage with policymakers on issues that are affecting the education sector. We hold them accountable. We want this, and this to be done. What are you doing about this? How are you engaging young people in the various countries that you're from, that you're coming from. And one thing that we're currently doing is that our network is going to be part of the team that is developing what we call the Global Youth Engagement Indicator, which is going to be more like a tool that is going to hold our governments accountable, like to what extent are you engaging young people in the various countries that you're from.
Right. And looking at Malawi 2063, the role of the youth in this, do you think we're making progress, and what do you think needs to be done?
I would say there's been little progress, little. I would emphasize on the little progress. But coming from the previous years, I think Malawi is still doing a great job. Particularly, I've seen that these days you find that a lot of young people are being engaged, or they know at least what is happening in the country. Like, oh, there's this event happening, and you find a lot of young people in such platforms. Recently, we had a space conference. Is it a space conference, I think? And I was able to see a lot of young people attending such an event. I mean, it's not particularly to do with education sector or whatever, but young people are showing that curiosity, that enthusiasm, that they want to be part of what's going on in their country. Little by little, they're gaining knowledge on a lot of things that are happening. And I would speak more about the progress that as a nation we're making towards the Malawi 2063. I think if we were to look at the campaign that we're running in 2022, Malawi, one of the issues that it's emphasized in the Malawi 2063 is to do with digitalization. I believe that we cannot achieve digitalization if internet is very expensive, if the gadgets that we want to have access to are not affordable itself. So I think we need to be intentional about the affordability aspect itself. Are young people able to access these devices, or is every citizen able to access these devices? Now, especially for students, you know, if we are to achieve digitalization, I would take it from the education context. We need to be intentional about education technology interventions by, there are a number of organizations that I think are doing so much to address those kind of issues. I like to give examples of youth organizations like In the Woman organization. It's a women-led organization. Young people, you know, young girls particularly, what they're doing, they're training other students in how to use like a laptop, how to use a gadget, how to access educational websites. Basic digital skills is what they're doing. But we also have organizations like Campaign for Female Education, popularly known as CAMFED. These guys are donating laptops, providing internet facilities to university students. So I think that that's a good step. It doesn't have to be government alone, but it has to be you and I also taking action towards achieving the digitalization agenda in order to achieve the Malawi 2063 vision.
Right. And you recently represented Malawi at the Youth Africa Colloquium. Can you tell us about that?
So the African Youth Colloquium was an event that was organized in February by the Pan-African Youth Union. And I was particularly invited by the All Africa Students Union through the kind of engagements that we've had. They wanted me to be one of the panelists for the one event that was to do with digital, building an African education system that is combining digital infrastructure and all those things. So I was on that panel, and one of the things that we were emphasizing was what is the progress that is being done in the various countries in terms of digitalization. Is internet affordable? Are students able to access gadgets like smartphones? Do they have such facilities? Do they have Wi-Fi in their various campuses? So we're looking at all those things, and we talked more about the digital inclusion campaign and what has been done. And one of the things that I would commend Malawi is the recent partnership that was announced, I think was it August or October 2023, ADA. They were talking about their recent partnership with the government of Zambia, where they want to bring about cables to facilitate the reduction of internet. So I think that was a major step, but unfortunately, a month later or a week later, that's when Malawi was, our currency was devalued again. So I think that has been one of the things that has hindered the progress itself. And what we're doing now is just to try to follow up with our government to say, okay, so now that we've been hit with the devaluation, is internet going to be is it going to be reduced any further? And what are the steps that you're taking? If not, what are the steps that you're taking to be intentional about accessibility and affordability of internet as well as the gadgets available?
Right. We are talking to Esther Gomani, a passionate youth and student activist. She is the Africa Student Representative on the UNESCO SDG 4 Youth and Student Network, and she is my guest in today's edition of Day A. We'll be right back, so please don't go away. Welcome back to Date A. My guest today is Esther Gomani. She is a passionate youth and student activist and the Africa Student Representative on the UNESCO SDG 4 Youth and Student Network. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Before the break, you were talking about you representing Malawi in different platforms. How does that make you feel?
I love to travel, and I think that has been one of the biggest highlights for me. My first trip that I took out of Malawi was in such a capacity where I was representing Malawi at the 13th Elective Congress in Ghana. So I think that was the biggest highlight for me, and I think it's been one trip after the other since then. In 2022, I was a delegate at the 5th Global Conference on Elimination of Child Labor, where I also had the privilege of meeting the Minister of Labor by then, Madam Vera Kantukule. And I've also had an opportunity to meet with renowned people, you know, from different countries and not just Malawi. In November, in November, I had the opportunity to represent in my capacity as Deputy Secretary General of the Southern Africa Students' Union. It was in a strategic planning meeting for the Student Academic Freedom Planning. So those are some of the events that I've had the opportunity to attend. In 2023, I had the opportunity to speak at a side event in Lusaka, Zambia, which we had the Africa Music, Art and Culture exhibition. And this year, that's when I went to Ethiopia at the African Youth Colloquium. So I think it's one thing to just travel for leisure or something, but it's one thing when you're traveling to represent your country and be able to speak at such platforms where you're not just speaking, but you're able to make impact, and you know it that, oh, okay, I'm making progress. Since 2021, maybe the way I delivered wasn't exactly as how I would deliver right now. There's been that kind of a progress, even for me as an individual, but also with the organizations that I've been serving.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're fairly young and it hasn't been an easy journey.
Right.
What are some of the challenges that you've come across along the way?
You've pointed out already, you've talked about age. I think that's one of the things that has also been a contributing factor to some of the opportunities that I've lost. You find out that for many opportunities that you have to get, you have to be at least 18 or above. And by the time that I was vying for candidacy at Magu, I was only 16. So I was 15 actually during the election period, and I started serving at the age of 16. So already you can see that there was that conflict to say, is she going to be able to deliver? Should we expect more from her? But it's all by the grace of God that I won. I say so, that I won, and I was able to deliver. I was able to be one of the female leaders that really brought about that kind of impact. It was the first time Malawi Assemblies of God University had female leaders, especially in the executive committee. And primarily how they've built our university is that in the boys' hostel, there is a particular room that has a bathroom and a toilet installed, like it's there. That's the president's room. So a president and the general secretary are supposed to be in that room, or his vice. Well, for the girls' hostels, there was no particular structure, like how they had which already it meant that a president should come from should be a boy or should be a male. And we changed that. We changed that by becoming the first female executives. We had the first female vice president and myself as the first female general secretary. And we demanded that we want the same treatment. How you've given them that special treatment to the boys, we want the same. And it was the first time that we started to have two people sleeping in one room at the girls' side, because we have to also be respected. The same treatment that they were giving the boys has to also come to us. So I think it's been that kind of a thing. And some of the challenges has also been when you're young, people would obviously feel like, oh no, she cannot deliver, right? And some of the platforms that I've been able to speak, you find out that there are people that would throw some questions that just want to make you feel like, are you really capable, right? But I've overcome those, and I think the people that I was surrounded by have really been supportive. My parents, my biggest support system, my parents, my family, and the friends that I've been surrounded with are those that would encourage me, are those that would motivate me, like, no, you can do it, you can do it. And I've always done it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you are doing it.
And I'm doing it.
Excellent. Tell us about your feeding program.
Eat and Learn. Yeah. That's the name. So last year, I had the opportunity to visit a certain school in Kanjawala village. And during that visit, I noticed that it's a rural school that is built in Kanjawala village as you're going to Njinji in a certain village that side. And this school is the one that has been built by a certain lady just out of goodwill. At first, she built a church. It's an Assembly of God church. And then later on, after noticing how students are walking long distances to school, or maybe they're not even going to school, she decided to establish a school. So I had the opportunity to just visit at my personal level. Eventually, I heard some news about a few students that had fainted weeks ago because of hunger, or at least they were walking a distance to come to the school. So it hit me, right? And by the time I had seen a post by Varaidzo Kativu, she's a youth activist, a girls' education activist from Zimbabwe, based in the UK, and a PhD in the USA. And she had posted about a grant application. It's called Kid Kindness Grants. So I was drawn to it, but I didn't have an exact idea. What should I apply? You know, what idea should I apply for? And after visiting this school, it just snapped in my mind, like, oh, I think you can do something about this. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to provide porridge, because at the time, hunger cases were just rising. You hear in Dedza, there's this, in this district, there's this happening, and I just wanted to do something about it, you know. So I applied for the grant, and I was lucky enough that I won. So that's why I talked earlier that I'm a Kid Kindness Grant winner. By the time I was 18, so I was eligible. Currently, I'm 19. So I was eligible for the grant, and I applied, and what we did, we provided porridge to the students. We fed over 130 students at the school. We provided porridge, we engaged with the students, you know, and we also engaged with the school's management. Also, we provided the Eat and Learn initiative was primarily intended as a school feeding initiative, but we also identified a few students that were struggling with fees, and we supported them with the 5,000 because that was the initial advert that they had put across on Facebook. They were calling for donors, or at least people that are well wishers, to just support with the 5,000 for every student as a monthly contribution. So we provided 5,000 to about 12 students. Yeah, it was 12 students, and that's what we've done. I wanted to do it for at least a week, or maybe for a whole term, preferably based on availability of funds, but the funding was very small. It was a $195 grant from Kindness Grows Here, and obviously it can't last, especially with the devaluation. It couldn't take us through for a whole week, or maybe for even a term. So what we just did, we made it a one day but full of impact.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how is the support?
We got a lot of donations, honestly. I think the support was really massive. We We received a bag of maize. We received sugar, packets of sugar. So I think that pushed us really. And just the support from people themselves, finding themselves available during the initial event. I think that was one thing that stood out for me. There were people that didn't maybe per se donate anything, but they made themselves available during the event. But I also worked with a team of at least 5 to 9 individuals, different students, others that are also graduates and maybe job hunting. And that's one of the things that they did. They were there. They provided their services. They made themselves available by distributing porridge, engaging with the students, and making the day indeed full of impact.
Wow. And what are your plans for the future?
My plans, I'm currently job searching, but other than that, I think I want to own my own school in the near future. I think that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to, but also aspiring to work with international non-governmental organizations, because I think that's where you get to amplify your impact even more. But primarily, currently, I want to work with local organizations. How can we help and how can we support each other? I was volunteering last year with Youth Inspire Initiative. I think you had an opportunity to talk to the executive director a few weeks ago. And I've also volunteered with other organizations like Youth Empowerment and Support Initiative from Salima, where I was based in the last 2 years. I've also had opportunities to just work with different organizations, engage with different local organizations, not just internationally or not just globally. So yeah, that's what I'm doing, and I'm hoping to do more, even more. Like the Eat and Learn, my plan is to establish my own organization, and the Eat and Learn will be a project under that organization and not necessarily just a standalone thing.
You got an award this year
Yes.
as one of the 100 inspiring women in Malawi,
Right.
under the Wealth Malawi banner. How did that feel?
It was surreal, honestly. I never expected it. I mean, when you're doing all this stuff, you get to a place where you'll be like, but are my efforts enough? You know? Is what I'm doing really making any difference? Are people noticing this? Because yes, it's good to just do something out of free will or out of the love that you have towards serving, but it's also one thing that motivates you, especially when you have people that are able to recognize those efforts. And I think what the Wealth magazine did was really surreal for me. Recognizing me, I was the youngest youngest girl or woman that was recognized on that platform, and the fact that they even had me to go to the front and just be seen, you know, by all those guests that were represented in that room. I think that was one of the moments that really hit me like, oh, this is happening. And I think since then I've noticed that, oh, so it doesn't have to be much, you know, you can start with the little small things that you are doing, taking steps smoothly. People are recognizing those efforts, and eventually I know that one day I'm going to be awarded even with greater awards.
No, keep up the good job.
Thank you very much.
And of course, your final remarks to the youth, your fellow youth.
Okay, so my fellow remarks would be, take up those spaces. When you're entrusted with any leadership capacity or position, do not be afraid. Just start. I was only 16 when I was entrusted to be the General Secretary for the Magu Student Council, and I did it, and I've been doing it ever since. So I think just start with where you are. I get a lot of those, questions from individuals asking, how do you do it, and all those things. So it just takes about the motivation that you have, what drives you. If that drive that you have is indeed true, it is indeed it's indeed the passion to serve your fellow young people or citizens, then you will excel. Yeah.
Keep on winning and keep on shining, Esther.
Thank you very much.
And keep on carrying the Malawi flag. We're so proud of you, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sparing your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was Esther Gomani, my guest in today's edition of Date A. She is a passionate youth and student activist, and she is the Africa Student Representative on the UNESCO SDG 4 Youth and Student Network. She has so much to give. She is full of life, full of energy, and ready to take up the space. And I'm sure you've been inspired by her story. Until next time, My name is Angel Chim. On behalf of the entire team, it's thank you for being there and enjoy the rest of our programs here on NBC as we continue to inspire the nation. Goodbye.